With midterm elections for Congress just a few months away, grassroots organizations are trying to influence decisions around federal spending. The alternatives range from deficit reduction plans from Republican head of the House Budget Committee, Paul Ryan, to a much different vision from Democrats in the Progressive Caucus. And that's the background for the Tax Day rally taking place in Boston this Saturday, 2 p.m. at Emmanuel Church in the Back Bay. Our guest is a coordinator with the group organizing the rally, Budget for All. We'd like to welcome Paul Shannon. Thank you very much for being with us, Paul.
Chris, thank you very much for having me and for having the chance to let people know about what I think is going to be a very interesting event.
Well, first of all, what this is really doing is trying to reinforce the message that voters sent in a referendum not too long ago.
That's right. In 2012, we had a public policy question on the ballot in 91 cities and towns across the state. In all those cities and towns, what we called the Budget for All referendum won easily, including in cities and towns that voted for Mitt Romney. So we felt that we had a bipartisan consensus developing in the state around certain basic principles that should characterize the budget debate in Washington.
And what about the state of things right now, about why it matters so much which way the budget goes? Because you're essentially saying there's something out there that still needs to be fixed and we need government to fix it.
Well, the problem is, while it's not very interesting sometimes to talk about the budget or to read about it, or to understand these things called sequesters and austerity and all these types of things. In fact, what's at stake here is the future of the country. The budget, the federal budget, touches on issues that are important to all of us. And by allocating resources in particular ways and not allocating it other ways, decisions are made about what life is going to be like here over the next couple of decades.
Well, certainly the Paul Ryan answer to this is one thing that needs to be fixed is that there are still a lot of people who don't have jobs, and by getting rid of the deficit within a few years, that will unleash those forces in the economy. There'll be more growth. We just have to cut Medicaid and food stamps and some things like that.
The Ryan budget, from the summary that I've looked at of it, is absolutely horrifying to any Americans who feel that as a society we are in this together and that we have to keep an eye on each other and make sure that our whole society moves forward, not just the top 10% and especially not just the top 1%. The Ryan budget would institutionalize changes made over the past 10 years, well, longer than that, tax cuts, incredibly high military spending, cuts in programs to middle-income and low-income families and the programs they depend on. It would institutionalize those changes, which would make them very, very difficult to reverse. Instead of creating jobs, these policies have actually been responsible for the deficit. The tax cuts are one of the top 3 reasons why we have a deficit in the first place. The second reason is the fact that the Pentagon has had to borrow hundreds of billions of dollars to pay for wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. There are a few other reasons too. They are not because of programs that support low-income people. These programs have been steadily either kept at the same level or decreased as the need for them with the economic crisis increases. And so the Ryan budget, what it does is it takes the policies that are responsible for the economic crisis that the country is in now and moves them to still another level. His belief is that by cutting taxes on high-income groups, you increase jobs. This has been proved over and over again. The tax decreases on the high-income groups and on multinational corporations do not increase jobs. What they do is provide these wealthy families and corporations with extra money to flood our political system and to make sure that budgets like the Ryan budget get passed in Congress by making sure that the Congress people there are in debt to these people who are flooding the political system with their money.
Now, the conventional thinking is neither the Ryan budget nor the progressive budget are going to pass this year, but what about the progressive budget? I mean, you want people to think about this, to know that there's a better way, or at least a different way to do things, right?
The Congressional Progressive Caucus that several members of the Massachusetts delegation are part of have come up with an alternative budget to the Ryan budget, and also an alternative budget to President Obama's budget. And in this budget, they really institute policies that will create jobs, that will raise the standard of living of families, that will also decrease the deficit.
And we should mention, and we have only just a little bit more time here, but as far as the time of the event and the location.
Well, there are two events. The first event is at 12:30 at the Bank of America building on 440 Boylston Street. The focus there is on the fact that these multi-billion corporations like Bank of America put so many of their profits offshore they don't have to pay taxes on them. If that revenue were brought home, just on the revenue, the taxes they're supposed to pay, we would have enough money to take care of many of these issues that are coming up. And so that'll be the focus there, that large corporations should pay what legally they're supposed to pay and not use these tax dodging techniques to avoid that. The other part of the thing will take place at 2 o'clock at Emmanuel College, in which we'll have Congresswoman Catherine Clark, Congressman Jim McGovern, some state representatives, Mel King, and people from different movements throughout the city that are working on very important issues that are a matter of survival for people, but also on issues like medical research, which is being cut in these budgets. And they will bring all these groups together to make one loud cry that our budget priorities have to change.
And I should clarify, make sure that I get that right. That's Emmanuel College in the Fenway then, right?
No, Emmanuel Church on Newbury Street.
Okay, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Paul Shannon with Budget for All. We'll have more news in just a moment.